Okay, so going back to the things that men do wrong going into polygyny, what are some of the other things that they do that creates a more hostile situation in polygyny?
Well, I can say, not from experience myself, but has been told to me that in a particular situation, the man married without telling the wife, and his routine, I think he worked at night or something, so he was spending part of that night with the other wife, and they somehow ended up coming together. And she found out that he was married, and that made for, a bitter relationship. So I guess he did it out of fear that he didn't want to tell her, he didn't want any fitness, so he just went on and took the wife and said, I'll deal with it, wherever the chips fall.
Yeah.
And some brothers do that, but then, like you said before, there's never a right way to...
The woman is always going to be upset. There's never a right time. There's never... I think that there are some times when a man should not go into or entertain taking another wife. Like, for example, when your wife is pregnant. Right. I don't think that that's the right time to go into polygamy or to entertain polygyny at that very moment. Especially if it's the first child, this is your wife's first child. This is supposed to be, a heartfelt moment. This is supposed to be a moment that, is going to be a shared experience between you and her, that is going to be the foundation of your relationship. And while she's carrying your child and going through the pangs of childbirth, you are thinking about another woman. I just think that that's just inappropriate, and it lacks tact. It's not tactful. Number two is when the woman, after she has the child, and she's breastfeeding and she's going through, the pains of postpartum, she can go through postpartum depression. I just think that that's just impromptu. It's just not the time to take another wife or to go into, because it's dismissive of all of the feelings and everything that she's going through at that very moment. And she needs you at that moment. She needs you, all of you, at that moment, while you are thinking about the next woman, I don't know if you guys know any other times that it might not be the best time. It's never the right time, but there are some times that it is definitely not the right time.
Well, just having tact. Like, y'all struggling.
Struggling financially.
It might never be right, but there's certain levels of struggling financially, and you just don't entertain it when you're at a certain level.
Either you don't have a job or in between jobs, or you're barely making the rent at that one home, and then you're entertaining. But the thing is that what catches a lot of brothers off guard is that there's always that woman that says, I don't need anything from you. I can handle my own rent. I work. Don't worry about it. All I need is a good husband, right?
But then you hope for the maturity of the man. You hope that he's mature enough to see through that.
Yeah.
Not everybody is going to know their boundaries and their limits. Not everybody is going to come in, understanding the fine aspects of polygamy. It has various aspects that monogamy does not have. And if you've never been in a polygamous marriage, you won't understand all of those, fine aspects that you learn.
Yeah. Okay, so another issue I wanted to kind of bring up is the advice that you would have. You are obviously a younger woman, a little more mature. Is it different in polygyny for younger women versus older women? Are the problems the same, or are the problems different depending on maturity and age? How does that,
I would say that they differ because of age. And the one whom has been married the longest has a more seasoned relationship than the sister who's coming in that's younger, and this is her first marriage. So there are going to be, I don't want to say that. It's like, you're more, what's the word I want to use?
Seasoned.
You're more experienced than the sister coming in who may be younger than you. And vice versa, if the sister come in and she's older and has previously been married, you know, you give her props.
The problem's going to be different.
Yes.
So what about the brother who's been married 20 years to one wife? They're well into their 50s, and then he marries a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old, you know? Because you have a lot of situations like that. And brothers, I think this speaks volumes to the fact that they don't know their own limits. You know, marrying a 20-year-old today or a 21, 22-year-old today is not like marrying a 21, 22-year-old 20 or 30 years ago. The dynamics are totally different today. So what advice would you give to women that are going into, may right now be at the cusp of going into polygyny? What advice would you give to this sister?
Before I answer that, I just wanted to touch on what she said. As a teacher, I teach 2nd and 3rd grade, and women, girls, 2nd and 3rd graders, even they have, you know, their little cliques and their little ways of behaving. And I have seen them ostracize a girl. I have seen them treat, you know, the new girl coming in, or somebody wore a new pair of shoes and they're treating her differently. So I think it's not so much that it's different if he's been married for 20 years and then he marries a 20-year-old. It's just women, we have a different dynamic, period. Whether you're 5, whether you're 50, we have a different set of rules than men. And I think being younger, a girl might be drunk off of her youngness, her youth. You know, like, oh, well, she's this age and I'm a pretty young thing.
Aisha was the same way.
Right,
Aisha,
exactly.
with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, she said to him on one occasion, why do you keep mentioning Khadija? She's old, she died, and you know, she didn't have any teeth in her mouth, and she was an old woman, and Allah replaced her with what is better, meaning me.
Right.
I'm young, I'm vibrant, you know, and I'm all you need, basically.
So it's like getting to the root of what your actual issues are. If you're already in polygyny, get to the root of what your issues are. You guys have, if there are issues, get to the root of that. Not so much, you know, talk about she's young, she's this, she's that, because that's just, you just pulling at straws. You just trying to figure out, why is this person being insecure? Why is she acting jealous? When in reality, that's normal. Get to the root of it. What is the solution for this? Like, how do we work through it? How do we grow through it? Right.
Okay. So what advice would you give, Aisha, to young sister, older sister going into polygyny right now?
In my relationship, or just in
No, in general. In general. If a young sister or older sister came to you right now and said, you know, my husband is going to marry this woman next week or 2 months from now, what advice could you give me? What advice would you give this woman, given your experiences, given your understanding and your knowledge of this whole marital institution of polygyny?
I would advise her to be sincere with her intentions of why she's going into the relationship, not to come into the relationship with the idea that I'm coming in to basically move her out of the way or make my presence known. To fear Allah as much as she can, and to want for her sister what she wants for herself. You know, to treat her the way you would want to be treated if it was vice versa, if she was coming into your marriage. And, you know, if she doesn't want a relationship right now, you know, stand back a little, give her some time. Don't try to force yourself on her. Yes.
Yes. Good point. Good point. Excellent. Sister Jannah?
This is endless. Like, I could give advice all day, which is what I'm doing in my mind.
But it's needed. It's needed. A lot of these young women, they don't get any advice. I think Dr. Brock, he came on the show and he said that, you know, he made a nice point. He said that if the Prophet ﷺ said that marriage is half of our deen, is half of your knowledge about Islam, about marriage. And that's an excellent point, because most people don't read about marriage. They don't read about polygyny. They don't read about all of the inner dynamics, the inner workings of polygyny. We're talking about everything from separation anxiety to insecurity to jealousy, which are all emotions that have to be contained. And the only way that you can contain those is if you know that they exist. You know, there's something that I mentioned in my book called separation anxiety. And this is whether in monogamy or in polygyny. It doesn't matter. And it's that you are pulled out of your comfort zone. A lot of men, whether in monogamy or polygamy, they have their lives, their lifestyles the way that they are, and they're comfortable in that zone. All right, when you marry into polygyny, all right, and I don't know if any brothers here, have had this experience, but I asked this question in a crowd of people that 98% of them were in monogamy, and they raised their hands. How many of you have experienced separation anxiety? Meaning that a couple of days after you got married, you woke up, you look at your spouse while they were sleeping, and you said, what am I doing here? I'm scared. I'm terrified. You go in your bathroom, you see male products in your bathroom, and you're like, what is going on here? You are literally having an anxiety attack because you have been pulled out of your comfort zone. If this happens with monogamy, and I've had people tell me that this happened to them in monogamy, then you can almost imagine what it does to you in polygyny, especially if you've had a substantial amount of time with your first wife, 10, 15, 20 years with this woman. This is all you've known. And then you marry this woman, and the day after you consummate the marriage, you wake up and you're in the bed with another woman. You're looking at this woman like, who is this woman? I want to go home. I want to go home. No, literally, I'm telling you. So, and these are things that people don't know, and they're not ready for, So all of the advice that you can give, please, please feel free.
Well, one, right before you go into it, what were you doing before you got married, before you're about to get married? You were praying, you were hoping that, God gives you the husband of your dreams, your Prince Charming, you're praying. And then when you get married, it's like all on the husband, and your happiness is now reliant on him.
Ooh.
And I think
Wow.
keeping that relationship with your Lord, keeping that relationship with God, with Allah.
So your happiness should not be contingent
on him. You prayed to God for him, and now you're in the marriage, and now you're mad because he's not spending equal time with you. Like that it doesn't match. You have to take your affairs back to God first. To give God his rights, and he will give you yours. And I think that is probably one of the most important things that we forget. We forget about that unique position that we have, with our Creator. Once you're in it, so much advice. Be aware, just be aware of the women. Be aware that your co-wife might just deceive you. She might not be, come on in, that might happen, right? It might not, she might be hurt. You might have to accept that she doesn't accept you. That might be a reality for you. So be aware, and be genuine. No matter what happens, even if you don't like something, be real in that with yourself, that you don't like something. It's okay. It's okay to not like something. I think,
and it's okay not to like somebody.
Right. It's okay. It's okay to not get along and be, best friends. It's okay. And if that's something you can work towards it. But you have to be. You were an individual before you got married. You did things for yourself. You were autonomous. And you don't. Not that you lose that when you get married, but you don't want to have an identity crisis when you get married. Wow. You want to keep that.
What does the identity crisis look like when you? I don't. You're touching on some stuff that I don't even know about. What is it? How does that? What does that?
I mean, sometimes for some women, when they get married, their husband absorbs everything. They give them everything, and so now, if he likes ice cream, you like ice cream. Mm-hmm. If he wants to do, you like this. You no longer have that autonomy where you can have an objective opinion. You no longer say, you know what. You might want to do that. You want to get those shoes? That's fine. But I don't like them, and that's okay. Some women may be afraid that if I don't like everything that he likes, he's going to divorce me, or he's going to like his other wife more because she likes, they eat shrimp and I don't eat shrimp, so maybe I'll just start eating shrimp. It's wow. Baseless. You have to know yourself.
MashaAllah, you guys have touched on some very, very important topics, and I pray that this information reaches the people that it needs to reach. One of the reasons that I chose this particular topic and selected you guys to come on the show was because a lot of women, especially African American women here in America that are in polygyny, they don't have a voice. Mm-hmm. They don't have a way to vent their frustrations. They open up blogs and Facebook pages and they get on there and they just backbite and they talk and just frivolously, and no one is solving the problem.
And there's so much misinformation.
Women, gossiping and venting their frustrations, but no one is providing any solutions to any of the problems. You know, and it's like, as the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, we just keep going around and around in a circle, and we become products of our own misery while we blame everybody else for it. You know, so, you know, I thank you guys for coming on the show. Please give my guests a round of applause, inshallah ta'ala. I don't know if anyone in the audience had any questions. We'll take a few moments to answer some of the questions. Yes, brother.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
My question is for Sister Aisha. I hear a lot of people talking about the first wife syndrome versus the second wife syndrome, and subsequently third or fourth. Being that you entered into marriage, into polygyny, does that disqualify you from having the first wife syndrome? Or was it the same when you entered into polygyny as polygyny entered into you? Or was it a difference?
I'm a little confused, so I'm going to try to help me to understand where you're going. You're saying when she came into polygyny, she was a second wife.
She was a second wife.
Okay.
There was a divorce.
Okay, so now she became the first wife.
The first wife.
So does she have first wife or second wife syndrome?
Right. Is it different? Did you feel different
from the position changing?
Or when it entered upon you, was there a difference of feeling?
Okay, so do you feel the same when you came in as a second wife as you do now that you're the first wife? Like, did those feelings change, or do you understand the question?
Yes and no, but actually when I came in as the second wife, I felt like, let me see. I don't think I had any issues because I knew I was coming into a relationship. So it's like, basic, I'll take whatever I can get. I'm not going to try and come in and move anyone out or to come in and make my presence known.
You're just happy to be married.
Yes, I was happy to be married. Then when it was just he and I, and then he decided he wanted another wife, feelings came in like, okay, well, I knew he was going to. So my issues were, like I said before, has he met this person before? When have they met? How long have they been talking? You know, things like that. Like, you know, basically, since I'm already in it, I'm okay. You're going to go through feelings because he's bringing someone else into the relationship, someone you don't know. Mm. So, but it wasn't like...
You didn't have first wife syndrome.
Yeah, I wasn't like all crazy, like I'm going to try to do anything I can to prevent this from happening, because I knew that, you know, it was going to happen. Okay. I think I was a little more prepared because I came into a relationship.
Okay. So I think what the question was kind of getting to is, when a woman positions from being the second wife to the first wife, does she now act brand new because you might have a woman like you came in as a second wife, now all of a sudden
yes. You can't help it.
Okay. And I mean I have a question for you guys, and this is basically for maybe our non-Muslim audience. Some people may look at the show and just think that you guys are just completely off your rocker. You know, you're marrying into other people's marriages. You know, how do we defend polygyny against the onslaught of people who believe that marriage is between one man and one woman, right?
Well, when you look at it, you want to come from
and you wrote a paper on this,
I did. I did. When you look at polygyny from a non-Muslim or, you know, people of other faiths, that perspective, you're talking statistics, so let's talk statistics.
Okay.
Right now, when you factor in all the men who are in jail, all the men who, and this is just for the American, North American society.
Okay.
When you factor in all the men who are in jail, when you factor in all of the men who, you know, prefer men.
An alternative lifestyle.
When you factor in all the men who are old and, you know, playboys and children, you're left with a staggering statistic. It's almost like 20 women to 1 man.
Wow.
So if you look, we live in North America, which was founded on Christianity, right? And religion is supposed to be that solution to every problem. Religion is supposed to be a solution. In your religion, you are supposed to find a solution. What is the solution for if every single man in North America got married, every single man in North America got married, there will still be millions of women who are unmarried, right? That's one. 2, you talk about all the women who are single mothers, right? So you think all the men who got married, and then you have all these women who are single mothers who have never been married. I have women in my family who have never been married, single mothers, raised 5 kids. What is the solution for her? Is she never supposed to get married? Are the women who, all the men are married now, and all these other women who are left over, are they just to be discarded? Or are the men supposed to divorce the women that they're with and, keep remarrying until, every woman has had an opportunity to be married? I mean, what's the solution? So, it's a solution to a problem. It's not something, like you said before, polygamy is not something that was permitted by Islam. It was something that was regulated. And it was regulated because we've had Europeans, they practice mistresses. Like, that is something that they practice. You had the queen, and then he had his mistresses, his concubines, people that he just dealt with, and that is okay. That was okay for them. That was acceptable. That was acceptable in that society.
But to be honorable and to marry a woman and to claim her as your wife and to be transparent in the community and to take all of her responsibilities and make them now your own is considered to be something
to be wrong, absurd. And it's honorable. Yeah. Like you're taking on another family. You're taking on a woman. She might have children, she might have bills that you're helping with.
Well,
like, it's a reality.
If you marry a woman and she can't have any children, what are you to do then?
Right.
Are you to just, restrict yourself to adopting someone else's child, or should you be permitted to marry another woman to produce children?
Like King Henry, he completely destroyed the church and the monarch that they had because his wife couldn't have children. It's a solution.
And every woman that couldn't have children, he divorced them. Sometimes
and went on to another. Right.
Had them killed and then went on to the next one instead of just marrying them and taking them. Yeah, exactly. Good point. Sister Aisha, to this point of, what people might think about the concept of polygyny or the marital institution of polygyny.
No, like she said, it's a solution to the problem of the women out here who are raising children by themselves and the women who aren't married. If every man can have at least 4 wives, that'll be part of the problem will be solved. Okay. Then you won't have that many single women out there.
I'll do you one even better. If we don't marry these women, right, then they are left for the government to take care of. Mm-hmm. The government wouldn't have the deficit that they had because of welfare if every man was to marry 4 women and take care of their responsibility. Absolutely. So we complain about women being on welfare and these women need to work and why they're getting a free ride on the government's back, then permit polygyny. And let real men, marry these women and take care of them so the government doesn't have to take care of them. Absolutely.
And it's insanity that you would prevent a man marrying more than 1 woman, but you would allow 2 men getting married. Like, that doesn't even...
That's a whole nother topic. Whole nother issue. So stay tuned, inshallah ta'ala, for the next episode of the Mardiyah Show, where we are meeting Muslims where they are. I'm your host, Shadid Muhammad. You guys have been great. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and to reward our guests who came on and shared their experiences. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to benefit from the best of what we heard. For indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the wali. He is the guardian of this, and He is able to do all things. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman kathira. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah.
Unfortunately, it's well known that in the Muslim community, not just in the United States, not just in non-Muslim countries, not just in the Western world, but it's a global pathology of the malpractice of what polygyny, referring to what it is, how it should be practiced, and how it is not practiced. So, I mean, people write articles about polygyny all the time, both Muslim and non-Muslim. However, the angle that I took, it's very evident that no one really took that angle before.
Okay.
Or not that I've noticed. So.